Hari Om. We shall chant from verse number 47, chapter 2. कर्मण्येवाधिकारस्ते मा फलेषु कदाचन मा कर्मफलहेतुर्भूः मा ते सङ्गोऽस्त्वकर्मणि योगस्थः कुरु कर्माणि सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा धनञ्जय सिद्ध्यसिद्ध्यो समो भूत्वा समत्वं योग उच्यते दूरेण ह्यवरं कर्म बुद्धियोगात् धनञ्जय बुद्धौ शरणमन्विच्छ कृपणाफलहेतवः बुद्धियुक्तो जहातीह उभे सुकृतदुष्कृते तस्माद् योगाय युज्यस्व योगः कर्मसु कौशलम् कर्मजं बुद्धियुक्ता हि फलं त्यक्त्वा मनीषिणः जन्मबन्धविनिर्मुक्ताः पदं गच्छन्त्यनामयम् यदा ते मोहकलिलं बुद्धिर्व्यतितरिष्यति तदा गन्तासि निर्वेदम् श्रोतव्यस्य श्रुतस्य च श्रुतिविप्रतिपन्ना ते यदा स्थास्यति निश्चला समाधावचला बुद्धिः तदा योगमवाप्स्यसि. So Srimad Bhagavad Gita is the essence of the Vedas, and Vedas are our most ancient, we call it Anadi Apaurusheya Grantha, which is revealed by Bhagwan himself, is the very praman for dharma as well as Brahma. Dharma means what karma I should do, I should perform. That is guided by Vedas, depending on our varna, ashrama, our nature with which we are born. The scriptures guide us what is the best type of action which, if we perform, which will benefit us, which will help us to lead a very happy, peaceful life here, attaining all-round prosperity, and also to gain enlightenment, self-realization ultimately. So this guidance is given by the scriptures. By ourselves, we cannot walk this path because we don't know what is the goal, what is the way. We'll get confused. It's like walking into a forest. If we don't know, if we don't have a guide, we will get lost. We might be going round and round the same place. So the guide for us in this world are these Vedas. And Vedas are very vast. Rigved, Yajurved, Samaved, Atharvaved. And based on these Vedas alone are other texts called the Puranas. So Puranas also talk about the same thing, Dharma and Brahma, in a very more understandable language with the help of various stories. Then we have the Itihas, Mahabharata, Ramayana, and we have what we call Smriti. So Bhagavad Gita, which also is part of Mahabharata, is called a Smriti. It is based on the Vedas, and it has been revealed at a particular time by a particular person. Then it's called Smriti. So Bhagavan Shri Krishna, who is avatar of Ishvara alone, revealed this during the Mahabharata war. So Arjuna became just a nimitta for this great essence of Vedas to get revealed. So Arjuna became confused in the battlefield and regarding his duties, because he was not very clear about his own identity. So there was this identity confusion which led to confusion regarding duties. So in order to clear all his doubts and make him fulfill all his duties, Bhagavan revealed this great scripture, and in the beginning itself, he revealed the nature of the self. Because not knowing ourselves as we are causes all confusion in our life. If we don't know who am I, then all that other things which we know makes no sense. If we say, I don't know myself, but I know a lot of other things, it doesn't make much sense. If that identity of my own person is not clear, then all the knowledge which depends on myself is also not very authentic. So first and foremost is to know who am I. But what is the confusion? The confusion is that I know I am, but I don't know what exactly am I. So I take myself to be something else only. I see my body, so I take that body to be myself. I experience emotions, so I take those emotions as myself. I have certain ideas and certain knowledge which makes me a particular of a particular profession or something. Then I take that as myself. I say I am a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer. So all this belongs to the upadhis, the outer conditionings. They are not exactly my nature. They are just the outer shell. But not knowing myself, I assume myself to be this outer shell. So therefore, there is all confusion regarding what I should do, what should not be done, etc. So Bhagavan first tells Arjuna that you are that self, that Atma, which is unborn, which is always present. That Atma is always present, therefore it has no birth, no death. It is always there, it is eternally present. Bhagavan says there was never a time when you were absent, when I was absent, or all these people were absent. We were always present. We might not be present in the class, but as existence, we are always present. But what changes? The body changes. Constantly the body changes. Now I am meeting you after 1 month, your body has changed. Assume, accept it. Because every moment the body changes. then every moment our mind, our intellect changes. So the outer equipments which we have constantly change. But the one who is using this equipment, the Atma, doesn't change. It is birthless, deathless, eternal. Also, it is not confined to this body. It is all pervading, which we don't experience. We experience our presence. I experience that I am here and now. But I don't experience I am there and then. But if I go there, again I will experience myself to be here and now. So in every time and in every place, I experience myself to be here and now. So I am present everywhere. Wherever you go, in whichever time you go, you are there. Even in whichever avastha you go, you are there. In Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti. So I am all pervading, eternal, birthless, deathless. That is my very nature. Also, I am of the nature of supreme bliss, which I experience when I am cut off from the upadhis. In deep sleep state, I experience supreme bliss, peace. But then when I wake up, I identify with the upadhis, and again I experience disturbance, sorrow. Not that it is my nature, but it is the nature of the mind, intellect, to be agitated, to be sorrowful, etc. So the first thing which we have to understand is that I am that Atma, different from this body, mind, intellect, different from this world, the witness of everything. That Atma am I. Once we recognize this, all our sorrow, all our fears, all our problems will get eliminated. But it is not as easy as it seems to be, because even after being told that we are that supreme Atma, we don't experience it. We continue to experience our body. We continue to experience change. We continue to experience sorrow. Even when it is said, I am of the nature of bliss, I continue suffering. Even when it is said, I am eternal, I have fear. Even when it is said that I am of the nature of pure knowledge, I am filled with ignorance. So it is like a contradiction. Strange contradiction. Because I am seeing myself through the eyes of the upadhis. It's like I look at my face through the mirror. If there is some defect in the mirror, the face also looks defective. If you look at yourself in a moving, running water, our reflection also seems to be moving and running. So it is the nature of that, the object, the reflecting surface, which makes us seems to be changing. Similarly, I, the changeless eternal self, seems to be changing because I look at it through the upadhis. So what I should do is look at myself free of these upadhis. Should be able to see myself free of these upadhis. I had given this example before also. Suppose you take a straight stick and dip it half in a bucket filled with water. You will see the stick bent, like, I don't know, inside or outside it bends. It seems bent. You must have observed this. Yes, that is good. But the stick is really not bent. How do you know? By removing it from that water. When I remove and look at that stick, I see it is very straight. Then again I put it into water, it looks bent. Similarly, the self in association with the upadhis seems changing. But when it is separated from the upadhis, one comes to know that it is changeless, eternal, supreme. but it is not easy to separate it. It gets automatically separated in deep sleep state. But in the waking state, to separate the self from the upadhis is not easy. For that, what is required is a peaceful, pure, calm mind and intellect, the antakarana. The antakarana should be shuddha for us to separate, and that vivek shakti should be there. Understanding, we should be able to discriminate with the help of this equipment the difference between the self and all these upadhis. So for that, purity of the mind, purity of the intellect, calmness, etc. is required. Now again, this is also impossible, seems like an impossible task. Mind is not something which we can just order and it becomes quiet. It is not something which we can hold it with our hand and all make it quiet. It has got its own way of functioning. See, something physical, we can just hold on to it. Something which is in our control. But there are certain things, even though physical, not under our control, we can't hold. In the 6th chapter, Arjuna says that mind is like the wind, very difficult to stop it at one place. So how can we do it? How can we make the mind calm, peaceful, so that we come to recognize ourselves? Bhagavan says this can be done through karma, by action. Action involves various things. Action means one is that physical action. Attitude is also an action. What type of attitude we have is also an action. It's action of the mind, action of the intellect. So, right action, when it is performed, we will be able to make the mind more and more calm and peaceful and pure. That technique of performing right action is called karma yoga. That path which is of right action with the right attitude is what is called karma yoga. It is a path of action which will not only fulfill all our duties in this world, but simultaneously help us to evolve spiritually. It's a twofold benefit we will gain. One is abhyuday, all round prosperity, and slowly and steadily it will lead us towards our spiritual destination. So, karma yoga. That is what Bhagavan, after telling Arjuna what is the nature of the self, Bhagavan tells Arjuna the path of karma yoga. He says, karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturbhuhu ma te sangostva karmani. That your adhikar, at present, your level of spiritual evolution is that you have to perform this karma with a particular attitude. And what is that? You have to fulfill all your duties, perform all your duties. Nitya Naimittik karma. And remaining more and more calm and peaceful means accepting whatever result comes as prasad. Maintaining that equanimity, you perform the action. That samatvam itself is called that yoga. Karma yoga, the main crux of karma yoga is samatva buddhi. Samatvam yoga uchyate. Samatva means keeping the mind in equanimous situation. Sukha dukkhe samay kritva labha labho jaya jayo tato yuddhaya yujyasva naivam papam avapsyasi. Bhagavan says, take the sukha dukkha, joy, sorrow, gain and loss, victory and defeat as equal. Equal means keep your mind equal in both. See, it is easier for us to accept victory but difficult to accept defeat. But if that is also the result of our karma, we should be able to accept it. we should be able to accept. See, if a war is there, one party wins, another loses. So if defeat comes to us, we should be able to accept it. Victory comes to us, we should be able to accept it with the same attitude. So that is called being equanimous, which is a difficult attitude to develop, but slowly, steadily it comes. So when we follow this sincerely, this path of Karma Yoga, our mind starts becoming more and more pure. Pure means it becomes more and more free of raga dvesha, likes and dislikes. When it becomes free of likes and dislikes, we become free to think deeply. When there are likes and dislikes, our thinking becomes biased. We cannot think objectively. We always then take side of what we like and stay away from what we dislike. But if my mind becomes free of likes and dislikes, then I will have an unbiased thinking capacity. Because the focus will be on understanding what is truth, what is real, not what I like and what I don't like, but what is the real, what is the reality. So when that happens, when the mind becomes pure, buddhi becomes pure, I develop that jidnyasa also, the thirst to know, and with the help of the scriptures, with the help of the teacher, when I investigate, inquire into the self, I come to recognize this self. I come to recognize myself as I am. As it is pointed out in the scripture, one directly experiences it. One directly comes to know it as clearly as one sees an object in this world. When I see this flower, I know it is there. Similarly, one comes to recognize the self as it is. Means our buddhi becomes pakka, convinced about the nature of our own self. There remains no doubt. It becomes absolutely clear to us. No more thinking is required for that. For example, 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. Now you don't require thinking, analyzing, and again proving it or doing counting or whatever. You know it. Similarly, one comes to know that I am this Supreme Self, which is also called Brahma. So I am Atma, this I is Brahma. One becomes convinced about it. There remains no doubt. So that is called, the buddhi becomes steady in the understanding. That's called being sthita prajna. The understanding becomes steady, clear, free from all doubt, absolutely convinced. And this itself is called buddhi in samadhi. Samadhi is another name of Atma only. So buddhi gets established in the Atma. So Bhagavan says, Shruti vipratipannate yadathasyati nischala. When your buddhi becomes steady, free from all doubts, all confusion, which you might have had before when you studied and investigated and inquired. That time we have lots of doubts, but when all your doubts get cleared and when the understanding about the self becomes completely clear, samadhavachala buddhihi, when your buddhi gets established in that self, that state is called the yoga, the state of enlightenment. Here, yoga means the state of enlightenment. Tada yogam avapsyasi. Then it will be said that you have attained that state of enlightenment. So enlightenment doesn't mean that a person's eyes are closed and he has gone into some sort of sleep, but he is awake, he is experiencing this world, but at the same time knows who am I clearly. without any doubt. So that is the state of enlightenment. Enlightened person is not asleep. Enlightened person is also awake, but he is more awake than us. Therefore he is called awakened, prabuddha. Others are half asleep. So tada yogam avapsyasi, then that person attains that state of enlightenment. So this one can attain through karma yoga. So following karma yoga, slowly and steadily, the mind becomes pure. Then through inquiry gain that knowledge, and one gets established in the self. So here Bhagwan gave the ultimate destination, the ultimate goal of our spiritual journey to gain that state of enlightenment. Such an enlightened person is called Sthita Prajna, one whose buddhi has become steady in the self. So till here Bhagwan gave this knowledge and concluded his teaching. But after listening to this, Arjuna had this question in his mind. He wanted to know what are the characteristics of an enlightened person. How to recognize an enlightened person. How can one know enlightened person? What are the outer characteristics and also inner characteristic of an enlightened person? That is one question. And also, how can we gain that state of enlightenment? Little sadhana also has to be mentioned. So that is how the next topic now begins with Arjuna's question. This is a very famous portion of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. It's called Sthita Prajna Lakshana. And it is like our goal indicated. And this in various chapters, in different ways, this enlightened person is described. Here Arjuna uses the term Sthita Prajna, but in other chapters, the terms like Bhakta or Yogi or Trigunatita, like that different terms are also used. So let us see what is Arjuna's question. Arjuna uvacha Sthita prajnasya ka bhasha samadhisthasya keshava Sthitadhi kim prabhasheta Kimasita vrajeta kim Sthita prajnasya ka bhasha. Arjuna Vacha. This Bhagavad Gita is in the form of a dialogue. It's called Samvad. Samvad means a dialogue. And not ordinary dialogue, but Guru Shishya Samvad. Most of our scriptures are in the form of this type of dialogue, Guru Shishya Samvad. So through dialogue itself, the understanding happens in the Shishya's Antakarana. So the teacher knows, teacher is established in that truth, and through dialogue, the teacher makes the student also understand and gets established in this. So this is a beautiful form of communication. The realization of the teacher is communicated to the student through this dialogue. So in that dialogue, what is required is total humility on the part of the student, all the qualifications and proper rapport with the teacher, and proactive listening and following whatever the teaching is given. So Arjuna, the name itself means one who is straightforward. Arjuna, Rujutvat, Arjuna. Ruju means one who is straightforward, means well-integrated person. His actions, his emotions, his understanding are integrated. This is very important. Many times what happens, our understanding is one, emotions are different, and actions are, they are like three different parties. So if you ask that person intellectually and all, he will talk high philosophy. But if you look at that person, emotions, it is directed towards something else only. And then finally, if you see the action, then it will be totally different. Then such a person is disintegrated. So for a seeker, first step is to become Arjuna, to become straightforward. Our actions, our emotions, and our understanding should be well integrated. It should actually, our understanding, our emotions should tune with our understanding, and our actions should get tuned with the emotion and understanding. Not the other way around. Not that first you act and try to create emotion about it and then try to justify it. That is not the way. It should start with the understanding, express in the emotions also, and then actions also. So that is what Arjuna's nature was. But now he was totally confused at this stage. He was little confused. So his understanding was one, his emotions were totally going haywire, the actions were not happening properly. So he asked this question. See, now from this question itself we come to know that within a short time Arjuna could, from a totally confused person, which we saw in the first chapter, in the beginning of second chapter, there is a tremendous progress. Just by listening to Bhagwan's teaching, Arjuna could ask this very subtle question. See, what type of question we ask determines what type of understanding or level of our spiritual growth we have. Some people ask very silly questions. So we are at a silly level. That doesn't mean you should not ask silly questions. One can keep asking. But as we rise in our spiritual journey, our question also becomes more and more subtle. Therefore, the Upanishads, they have such subtle questions because it's at a very high level of the student as well as the teacher. So, Stita Prajnasya ka bhasha samadhisthasya Keshava. Arjuna is saying, asking, hey Keshava, oh my dear Krishna. Krishna has got many names. Keshava is one of it. Actually, the word name Keshava contains all the three devatas, Ka, Isha and Va. All the three, Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, all of them are there within. So Ishvara alone expresses as Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh. So Bhagwan Krishna was Sakshat avatar of Ishvara alone. So Arjuna is asking him, hey Keshava, ki stita prajnasya ka bhasha? That what is the bhasha? Bhasha, literally it means language. But here bhasha means paribhasha. What is the characteristics? What is the definition or characteristic of a stita prajna? And what is the meaning of stita prajna? One whose prajna, understanding, has become stita, steady. One of steady understanding. See, when somebody asks us, who are you? we say one thing. After a few days, if we ask, that person tells something else about himself. Our understanding about ourselves keep on changing. Because our understanding is not about ourselves, it is about our equipments only. So it keeps on changing. People keep on changing their biography. Whatever good thing they will write, whatever gadbad thing they will eliminate it. But if I come to recognize myself, my true nature, my understanding also will remain steady, it will not change. It will be steady. So Shankaracharya ji writes that stita pratisthita aham asmi param brahma iti prajna. That I am that param brahma. This understanding becomes steady, absolutely free from all doubts. See, our buddhi is the most fascinating equipment which we have. And that once that buddhi has understood something, is convinced about something, our emotions also get transformed and our actions also get transformed instantly. Instantly you can see effect of our understanding on our body also. Such a powerful that instrument it is. Suppose you are having some food, about to eat, about to enjoy. Then somebody comes and says, oh, इसमें poison है. Immediately पूरा एकदम एटीट्यूड ही बदल जाता है उसको देखने का. Instantly. Yeah? Sometimes we come to know certain incident happen in our life. We come to know about our friends or some, like that example is given that one person was enjoying his party and laughing, dancing, jumping. Then when his friend came and told him that, oh, your son has met with an accident. Instantly at that very moment the whole expression changes. His whole mind gets withdrawn from the party. Instantly. There's no time takes. He doesn't say, no, let me finish this beer. Nothing like that. If that understanding, when it goes inside, this withdrawal takes place instantly. The whole transformation happens in a person. That is the power of understanding. So, therefore, when we say, oh, I have understood, I am Brahma, that is not called understanding. It is just information. When we listen to scriptures, we get information that I am Brahma. Information doesn't transform us. Understanding transforms us. Information should be converted into understanding through contemplation. Otherwise, it is just information. It's like we have this, I give this example, like our algebra books are there in our 10th standard and all. So some problems are given, and at the end of the book, the solution is also given. So you know the problem, you know the solution, but you don't know algebra. Because from the problem, through proper logical thinking, you should be able to arrive at the solution. That's called understanding. And that is called contemplation, this arrival. Who am I don't know. I am Brahma, the scriptures tell me. So I know the problem is there, solution is there. That will not help. I should be able to arrive at it. So when I arrive at that solution, that firm understanding happens. And that understanding transforms me, transforms my emotions, transforms my attitude. So such a person who has this firm understanding is called Sthita Prajna. And how that understanding has happened? First by following the path of Karma Yoga, making the mind pure, then contemplating on the scriptures, slowly and steadily, that understanding happens. Clear cut. So Sthita Prajna is called. So Sthita Prajna se ka bhasha? What is the characteristic of this? Means how is this Sthita Prajna indicated by others? from their external, what are the external characteristics of this Sthita Prajna, as well as what are the internal characteristics of this Sthita Prajna. Means how a Sthita Prajna experiences himself and how others experience a Sthita Prajna. This is very interesting and important because this question is there in everyone's mind. Who are this realized person? And then each one of us, we have our own understanding. It might be very foolish understanding also. We might go by the look, external look. उसकी दाढ़ी कितनी लंबी है, उसके बाल कितने ये, उसका ड्रेस कौन सा पहना है, विभूति कैसी लगाई है, गले में कौन सी माला डाली है, सवेरे कितने बजे उठता है, कहाँ जाता है, क्या करता है, ये वो. So we have our own ideas about who is or how many followers he has got, how big is the ashram, what are the this and that. So all these are not mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan doesn't mention it. Doesn't matter how many followers or no followers or whatever. What is the character? If those characteristics are there in us, we are Sthita Prajna. In others, if you see, they are Sthita Prajna. Some characteristic we cannot recognize in others. They are very subtle. So it's very interesting. So Sthita Prajnasya ka bhasha. Samadhisthasya Keshava. Another term for Sthita Prajna is Samadhistha. Samadhi, as I said, is another name for Atma. One who is established in his own Atma, in his own Supreme Self. If somebody asks me, who am I? If I talk about my body, then I am established in my body. If I talk about my mind, then I am seated in my mind. Where am I seated? A Sthita Prajna is one who is seated in the self. He knows his upadhis, but he is seated in his self. जैसे वो नौका होती है, if when it is in the water, it goes up and down. And a person who is seated in the nauka also goes up and down. But if that person is seated on that island, on the lighthouse, it doesn't go up and down with the waves. So where are you seated? Where is that I established in? Is it established in that Atma or in the Upadhis? So Samadhisthasya Keshava, hey Keshava, what is the paribhasha, what is the definition, what is the characteristic of a Sthita Prajna, of a Samadhistha? See, this word Samadhi is used in other philosophies also. Like in Yoga Sutra, the word Samadhi is used, but the meaning of that word Samadhi in Yoga Sutra is different. In Yoga Sutra, the meaning of Samadhi is Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Athato, Atha Yoganuशासनम, Yogaschitta Vritti Nirodha. So according to Patanjali Rishi, when the mind, the chitta vrittis, the thoughts of the mind becomes absolutely still, that condition is called Samadhi. And this can happen only when we withdraw our attention from the world outside, when we restrain all our activities, when we keep our eyes closed. And then slowly and steadily the mind becomes absolutely still. For that, intense vairagya and abhyas is required. Abhyasa vairagyabhyam tan nirodha. So through abhyas and vairagya, it can happen. Abhyas is that eightfold abhyas, yama, niyama, asana, pranayam, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, which leads to samadhi. But that samadhi is different. And this samadhi, what here Bhagavan will be talking, is different. In that Yoga Sutra, the samadhi, it is restraining our mind, keeping the mind steady. But as soon as and it requires effort, as soon as that effort goes away, again the mind can become unsteady. In this, Bhagavan says that the knowledge of the self happens. Once that knowledge of the self takes place, whether the mind is steady or mind is active, it doesn't matter. The person is called still in samadhi. The person is still in samadhi whether the mind is active or not active, whether the actions are happening or not happening, it doesn't matter. So this is a higher state wherein the person is established in the self, not in the upadhis. But in case of other samadhi which we try to attain through effort, then when the mind is steady, we are in samadhi. When the mind is restless, we are again back into restlessness. So it depends on the condition of the mind. But here one transcends this mind also and gets established in the self. So what are the characteristics of a person who is in such a samadhi? Again, another term used for him is sthitadhi. Dhi means understanding. One whose understanding has become steady, sthita, steady in the self. The understanding that I am that Brahma is free from all doubts, all confusion, all delusion. It is absolutely clear. You cannot make a realized person confused about his self. You can make him confused about other things if you want. But about the nature of the self, you cannot confuse him. You cannot say, नहीं, उसमें ऐसा लिखा है और उसमें ऐसा है. He knows. No doubt about it. Others, seekers and all get confused. Every book we read, we get convinced. Then other book we read, we get convinced about it. It might be talking opposite things totally. So our understanding is not steady. Why? Because we may not have used the right praman, or we might not have contemplated properly enough to gain that understanding. So, sthitadhi kim prabhasheta? How does a realized person speak? How does he talk? How does he talk means how does he interact with the world outside? How does he interact with the world? Does he interact with the world? Yes, he interacts. How does he interact? So, kim prabhasheta, kim asita, and how does he remain seated? How does he sit? Kim asita. Vrajeta kim, how does he walk? Means what are his various lakshanas of a sthita prajna? How does he sit? How does he walk? How does he speak? How does he interact with the world around him? I say him, it is him or her. There is no gender. Then that Atma doesn't have any gender. The body has got gender and all. Atma doesn't have. Again, the beauty of this is that all these characteristics which will be mentioned are natural for a sthita prajna, a realized person. It is not that he puts forth special effort to remain like that. It is natural. That is why it is called its characteristic. It is natural. It's not an action. It is a natural phenomena. And what is natural for a realized person, that those actions or those things becomes sadhana for others to be done with effort. Sarvatra eva adhyatma shastre कृतार्थ लक्षणानि यानि तानि एव साधनानि उपदिश्यन्ते यत्न साध्यत्वात्. Shankaracharya says that whatever characteristics which are mentioned about an enlightened person, which are natural for that enlightened person, are the sadhanas for the seekers. So, this is the question. So, let us see what Bhagavan replies. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha प्रजहाति यदा कामान् सर्वान् पार्थमनोगतान् आत्मन्नेवात्मना तुष्टः स्थितप्रज्ञस्तदोच्यते प्रजहाति यदा कामान् सर्वान् पार्थमनोगतान्। Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Again here Bhagavan Shri Krishna is not speaking as an individual, as a ordinary human being, but he is speaking as Bhagavan himself, as Ishvara, as the very self of all beings, as Sarvajna, Sarvashaktiman, as the creator of this world, as the one who knows all about dharma, who is Yogeshwara Krishna is called, who is the one who has revealed all these shastras to this world. So that Bhagavan Shri Krishna is speaking. So whatever is said here is not meant only for Arjuna, but for all mankind, for everyone. It's a universal. It's not only for Hindus or for Indians or something like that, but for everyone. Therefore is Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Just like when we have some person giving statement, like when the president gives a statement as president, it's meant for everyone. But as a individual, if he gives some statement, it will be taken as his individual view. But as a president, it is presidential statement. Similarly, here Bhagavan is giving statement as Bhagavan. So, Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan. Hey Partha, what is the characteristic of a sthita prajna, a self-realized person? He says, when a person has given up all kamana, prajahati, when he has renounced, when a person has renounced very well, what? Kaman, all desires, ichha, craving. When all the desires of the mind, manogatan, which have entered the mind, which have entered the antakarana, the desires which have entered the antakarana, one has given up very well. See, this kama means desire. This desire is born when we keep on thinking about the objects. In this further Bhagavan will tell कि ध्यायतो विषयांस पुंसः संगस्तेषुपजायते संगात संजायते कामः. Kama means desire. When we keep thinking, suppose some object is there, and we keep thinking about all the pleasures which we can get from that object. When we superimpose the idea of pleasure on that object, not only pleasure, we superimpose the idea of greatness on that object. Sometimes we might not get direct pleasure, but अभी status बढ़ जाता है वो object लेने से. So some sort of greatness, some sort of pleasure, we superimpose on those objects, which are not exactly in this object. The object is just simple. It has got nothing in, but we superimpose that idea. If I get that object, I will be happy. If I get that object, my status in the society will increase. So I keep thinking about it in that way. And when I keep thinking, then I get attached to that object. Attachment happens. Attachment means without effort, my thoughts keep on going towards that object. Afterwards, craving comes in strong that I want to possess that object. And that craving, when it becomes more and more strong, it is called kamna. Just like you go for shopping, let us say, window shopping. First, you're on the street waiting for your bus or whatever, and you just look at the window, those objects. And then you say, अभी time है, चलो अंदर जाके देखते हैं. Then those person also, salesperson, they know from your behavior and all कि कितना पानी में है, कितना है, क्या हो सकता है. So they say, come in, you can see. What is this watch, कितने में है? This is, you can take it, you can hold it, you can check it out. So we दूर से देखते हैं तो इतना अटैचमेंट नहीं होता है. फिर हम जब हाथ में लेते हैं, उसको पकड़ते हैं, थोड़ा सा ऐसा करते हैं, then slowly we start getting more and more attached, because physical contact and all those things happen, and more attachment happens. We start imagining, if I wear this watch and go there, I can show it to my friends. Simply I can direct. So I imagine things in my mind and all those. So more I imagine, more attachment happens. More attachment, more craving comes. More, when that craving becomes powerful, craving means I want it. And my happiness depends on it. My status depends on it. When such a thing happens, that I start losing control over myself. Kamna, when it becomes extreme, I lose control. Because then the mind and the whole thing becomes automatic. It says that you must have it, otherwise you are gone. So I lose control and I then buy that object, spend some money, buy it and all those things. So this kamna was not there inside. It has come from outside. Though the potential of that kamna is there. Potential is there. Some nature is there, which is called our vasana. Some sort of tendencies are there. But a particular kamna comes when we put forth special effort of thinking, contemplating. People go through this, they check the internet, objects, this, that and all. And then keep on thinking. Then that kamna enters our system. And for example, Ravan, he was sitting in his darbar peacefully, making everyone run around. Then that Surpana came, Surpanakha, his sister, her nose and ears were cut, and she started shouting and jumping. He asked, what happened? She said, look at my face. He said, is this some new sort of fashion or something you have done? He said, नहीं बाबा, मेरा नाक कान काट लिया है. किसने? So she told the whole story. Ravan must have felt, अच्छा हो गया, काट लिया. But then she knew his weakness, so she started describing the beauty of Sita ji. Now already he has vasanas. When he heard all this description of Sita ji, he became more and more, started contemplating, thinking that if I have such a queen, it will be such a wonderful thing, and this, and more pleasure, more status and all. And then kamna started increasing, craving. And once that craving came, it went out of control. Then he decided how to acquire it. By regular means, it is not possible. So try to acquire it through adharmic means. And then you know the whole story. So this kamna came from outside, but who brought it? I only. बाहर है, घड़ी बाहर है. सबसे पहले आँख से हम देखते हैं, and it comes into our mind. It can actually remain in the mind for a short time. See, when I look at a thing, it remains for a short time unless you register it more and more intensely. For example, you listen to my pravachan, एक कान से सुनते तो चले जाता है. Next time when I ask you, don't even remember such a thing ever happened. But when you note it down, when you recollect it, when you repeat it, then what happens? That becomes more and more strong. Similarly, when I observe, when the eyes see something, it is fraction of a second, it comes, it goes. But after seeing, then I think about it, then I look at it, then I again contemplate. It becomes more deep. There's a story of two monks going into the forest. They had to cross a little stream, and there was a girl sitting there, and she wanted to cross the stream, but she was frightened that a lot of water is there. So one of the monk, he just lifted her and crossed her across the stream and placed her there. And again, both of them started walking ahead. After going for 3-4 kilometers, that other monk, he said, "You did not do proper thing, right thing." He said, "What happened?" He said, "Why did you lift that girl?" He said, "Which girl?" "Oh, that one." He said, "I lifted and I left her there, but you are still carrying her in your mind." So, one is that eyes register something and that is forgotten. But then the impression goes into our mind, that also remains for some time, that is also forgotten. Out of sight, out of mind. Eh? Oh, Guruji was saying, sometimes people translate it very differently. Out of sight, out of mind. Invisible idiot. Out of sight, out of mind. Anyway. So, what goes into our mind can remain for short time. That also goes. But if you think about it, it remains for a longer time. If you think about the pleasure you can derive from it, if you start experiencing pleasure out of thinking, it becomes more intense, more deep. See, even thinking about certain thing gives us pleasure. So if we keep on thinking about it and if start giving me pleasure, it becomes more deep. Then without effort, I start thinking about it. That is called attachment. कुछ effort नहीं चाहिए. ऐसे बैठे बैठे याद आ जाती है. याद आ गई है and all. Without any effort, that's called attachment. And once this continues for a long time, that attachment gets converted into craving. I want it. Without that, I am incomplete. Without that, I have no joy in life. Without that, I am useless. I want it. That's called craving. That's called kamna. So, kamna has come from outside. Why? Because I superimpose all these ideas by my faulty thinking. Such kamnas are not there in the Mahatma. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan. Nothing. It is like the birds which are flying. They don't leave any trace behind. You can't check from where it flew. Similarly, Mahatma experiences this world at the present moment itself. Doesn't carry forward. Doesn't keep on thinking. Doesn't want to repeat the same thing and all those things. So, prajahati yada kaman sarvan. Just try to understand the conviction which that Mahatma must be having. Because the objects don't promise joy for that Mahatma. It is just an object. Whether it is a watch, it is a dirt, it is a mud, it is a stone, it doesn't matter. Everything is same. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan. So the kamna which has gone inside us through our own effort of thinking wrongly, such kamnas are thrown out. The mind becomes absolutely clean. And such a person will be able to experience the present moment. Not anybody. Because we see objects and we keep on contemplating. We go into the past. Every object, if it attracts us, we think about it. And we go into the past. And also imagine the future. So the person is never present in the present moment. But a realized person doesn't get carried away by these objects of this world. Therefore, he has dropped all kamna. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan. Sarvan means all. Manogatan. The kamnas which have entered the system, which are there in the antakarana, are all dropped. But one may say that, oh, if he doesn't have any kamna, he must be totally like a rock, like a stone. Huh? Like a mad person only he will be, because nothing will give him joy. If nothing gives him joy of the world, then he will be like a mad person only. So, Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji writes कि सर्व काम परित्यागे तुष्टि कारण अभावात. When there is nothing which can give him joy, then sharira dharana nimitta sheshecha sati unmatta pramattasya. Then even to maintain his body, he will be like a mad person. He will not, will not be able to function in this world, because there is no joy. Because all joy we get through the objects only, and this fellow has renounced all his kamnas, so there is no joy. Bhagavan says, no, it's not a question of no joy. He is getting joy, but from his own self. Atmani eva atmana tushtaha. He is absolutely content and satisfied with the joy of his own inner self. Atmani eva atmana tushtaha. Means always he is in that state of bliss. In case of ignorant person, he is not in a state of bliss and expecting joy from the world outside. Therefore, we keep on getting attached to things outside. But this Sthita Prajna is always in a state of bliss. And from where this bliss is coming? From the self. Atmani eva atmana tushtaha. In the self alone, he is absolutely content, satisfied, happy. So two things are said. One is doesn't have kamna, but that doesn't mean doesn't have happiness. He has happiness, but this happiness is not of the object, but of the subject. Atmani eva atmana tushtaha. Such a person is called sthita prajnas tadochyate. When one has reached this stage, then he is called a sthita prajna, enlightened person. More about this, about him, we will see in our class tomorrow. Now we will sit like a sthita prajna for some time. We'll try. So close your eyes and bring your attention in the present moment, here and now. And just feel the sense of total satisfaction and contentment, unconditional, without the need of any external objects, not coming from external object, the joy coming from within. Just experience the joy of being alive. Experience the joy of being existing, existence itself. I am, and I am happy. My being itself is happiness. My being itself is supremely peaceful and happy. पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ।